All right. So we're up to section 4, chapter 6. So we're continuing with the order of the day, of how we were speaking about Shema and Shmoneh Esrei, but now it's going to go into the whole, what a whole day looks like for a Jew, basically, or a spiritual being. It was like that. The highest wisdom ordained that the night should be a time when the forces of evil have the authority to proliferate in all their vehicles and cause their offshoots in the world to move about freely. And by the way, I think obviously there's no coincidence. He calls it Prate Seder Hayom Be'atfila. And we know that we have the Passover Seder, Pesach Seder, and we have the Sidur. So whenever there's a Seder, these steps necessary, and all the steps necessary, the step of the Sidur, the step of the Pesach Seder, and the steps of the Seder Hayom, or Hatfila, right? Hatfila is the Sidur, are obviously all connected. They're all here to make us free. So what we're learning now is how to connect to true freedom. How do we stay free from the forces of darkness? How do we stay connected to God in a world that is Gashmi, physical, materialistic, and not lose ourselves and be assimilated or overtaken by the Yetzer Hara, the influences. So in a way, it's a real great preparation for Pesach. So so night is, as he just said, is the forces of evil are the most dominant at night. They have, and that's why most of the crimes happen at night. You know, it's not a coincidence. The intention was that people should remain at home, sleeping and resting until the morning. When the morning comes, authority is taken away from these forces and their offshoots, and people can once again go about their occupations until nightfall. And we know in the past, it was something with the Arizal, it was something much, you know, in the time of the Arizal, even up to 300 years ago, even by the Goin, it was, night was always something spiritually, you know, filled with negativity and dangerous, and therefore people will not go out. It's a new thing with electricity and all that people go at night, and we know a lot of bad things happen at night. How many, you know, I think we can speak to almost anyone who live their life. The more they are out at night doing things, the more most of the bad stuff happens during that time. So the night is we're supposed to work from home. Whatever light we want to bring or fight against the darkness, because that's what is a special mitzvah to learn at night. One should do it ideally at home or in the best midrash, but night is not a great time really to be out. All this is explained in a psalm in which David HaMelech exclaims to God, "You make darkness and it is night, and all the beasts of the forest creep forth. The sun rises, they slink away. Man then goes forth to his work and to his labor until evening." So it describes that situation, how it's run and what's the natural course. All these concepts, with all their domains and limits, originate in the fundamental roots, following the various aspects of the influences that affect men at every level. This has already been discussed in the first section. Even though nighttime in general is a time when these forces have authority, this is actually only true of the first half of the night. At midnight, Chatzot, an influence of illumination and favor emanates from God to all worlds, and authority is taken away from these forces of evil. So we have to make a clear differentiation between the first part of the night and last part of the night. Their offshoots are driven away from the places of human habitation, and the spiritual illumination of the day begins to be awakened. This continues until daybreak, when the appropriate influence is transmitted, renewing all existence. So I don't know, I forgot if he speaks about it, but that's why there is that special prayer called Tikkun Chatzot. And it's a special prayer that we say at midnight, and we are able to connect because it's the moment, there's a switch between the domination of force of evil to the positive force that are getting ready for the next day. We're able to tap into that special light, and and because we're the first one in touch with it, it's like you're preparing the day with Hashem. You're preparing the illumination. You're already connecting from the beginning, and there's a special chen, a special gift of chesed given to that person. Okay, we can always speak more about Tikkun Chatzot, but that's, I don't want to go we're off, and most people don't do it today. But it's something to think about. It's technically, people don't necessarily know, there's really 5 prayers. The Muslim pray 5 times a day, but we pray 5 times a day too, technically. We have Mariv, Tikkun Chatzot, Shacharit, Mincha. Oh, I forgot, sorry. Mariv, the Shema Alamita, Tikkun Chatzot, Shacharit, and Mincha. Right? So this 3 of them connected to the night and 2 connected to the day. So that's important to know. We also have, that's the real said there. If someone is completely unable to do everything, that's the ideal. True good and evil are primarily the results of men's deeds. That's it. That's actually very interesting. See, true good and evil, the real, Atov ve'hara ha'amiti. So what does it mean? In order for this arrangement to be possible, however, the highest wisdom determined that the laws of nature contain a framework for the expansion of evil as well as its prevention. To achieve this, the highest wisdom decreed that a portion of the daily cycle be given over to evil, where it will have authority and proliferate so that it will be prepared to assimilate the product of men's deeds. It was also decreed that there be another portion of the daily cycle when its ability be taken away from evil, so that it be in a state of weakness where men's deeds can cause it to be subjugated. It's really like the yin yang. You have the white with the black, and you have the black with the white. So there's a mixture in order for all the forces to be able to be balanced, and for men to have free choice and the ability to fall in this area or this area. So therefore, there's a mixture in both, in the day and the night, of good and evil. God therefore set up 2 concepts, namely spiritual light and darkness, which are the results of his illumination and its absence, respectively, as discussed in the first section. God then divided the daily cycle among them, providing daytime for this light and nighttime for this darkness. The authority of these forces of evil is then given to them at night, and they are driven away by day. All this is so that they should be prepared to assimilate the products of men's deeds, as discussed earlier. So that's why it's shaped like that. That based on the real good and evil comes from us. Whatever I do is going to have impact in the world, and therefore the day, it has those 2. The day and the night has those 2 energies, because it's going to be able to absorb what I've done and react based on that, which is a little bit scary in the sense that we are very powerful. Whatever we do affects the world, and that's why the world is designed that way. so that we understand that our impact will, our actions will create seeds of good or evil and change how things are. So we need those forces to be alive in order to be receptors to it. So when the forces of evil are given authority to and proliferate in the world, the spiritual darkness of the world is likewise increased and strengthened. Therefore, even though men may be sound asleep and not involved in any evil, the corruption, the tuma, that is prevalent spreads over him. Meaning it impacts everything. Even though I'm home, I'm not doing anything bad, I'm sleeping, I'm not active, still it affects, it takes over everything. There's a ruach of tuma that goes around. The degree to which it can do so depends on the amount of spiritual darkness that exists in the individual's body as a result of his materialism and evil urge. The more, if someone is a complete tzaddik and never, which is almost never happens, but let's say someone is a complete tzaddik, he would not be affected technically by the spiritual forces of the night, and therefore technically he will need to wash his hands in the morning. But this is, the more I am connected to the physical during the day, the more I'm involved in doing action that are negative during the day, and the more I'm physical, the more my body is gonna and soul be affected by that spiritual negativity of the night, spiritual darkness of the night. Besides this, it is also part of the general order that when a person sleeps, the higher portion of his soul remove themselves from him, and as discussed earlier. So he says, besides this, another reason why we need to wash our hands in the morning is because our souls, you know, we have 3 levels of the soul. So 3 levels of the soul leaves our body, and it's when your soul leaves the body, it creates a vacuum, a halal, and so the kedusha of your soul leaves, and when there's no more kedusha, there's tuma. So that vacuum, you know, just like someone who dies, it doesn't have the soul anymore. It becomes avatuma, the highest level of tuma, and therefore, because now the place where there was holiness is removed, now it's taken over by the forces of tuma. So what's happening is that this creates an additional way to be tameh. He therefore experiences a taste of death while he sleeps, and our sages therefore teach us that sleep is 1/60th of death. As a result of the absence of the purifying light of the soul, spiritual darkness becomes all the more potent in man's body. So he has more power, the night has more power to attach itself to the body. The body is therefore much more open to this corruption to spread over it. This is the concept of the noxious spirit, ruach hara, he calls it, ruach hara, the noxious spirit that rests on the person's hands when he wakes up in the morning, as our sages teach us. The reasons that it rests on the hand and nowhere else is the result of the limits that the highest wisdom determined for it. According to man's state in this world, this is the appropriate degree that this unclean spirit should affect him, no more and no less. So he's saying, he's not really explaining why it is that it's just goes on the hands. We know that Kohanim will wash their feet also, but because we're not on the level of on spiritual level, it doesn't affect our feet. But our hands are how far the tuma is going to stay when our soul comes back. The tuma can only affect us till there and doesn't go further than that. My understanding on a simple level, very simple level, is that the hands is the part of our body that is the most involved with the physical world. We do everything with our hands. Almost every mitzvah is done with the hands. We use our hands to do work. So the hands is for the fingers especially, is the place that is the most active. We eat with hands. So the hands in a way move more than anything else in our body. So it's the most physically active part of our body, and therefore that's the place where the tuma is going to rest, in the place that is the most physical of all. Okay. And by the way, this is a reason why we have Birkat Kohanim, and you have people heal with their hands, massage healing. And our hands are very powerful. They're like 10 wires or 10 antennas. They correspond to the 10 sfirot. We have a lot of powerful energy going through our hands. So this is something that a lot of people who are into energy, all that, they know more about. And any energy healer is going to use his hands to do that. That's how it transfers. That's you transfer the energy. And that's why Birkat Kohanim, works with the hands like that also. So that we don't realize how powerful our hands are, so to speak. Now, the highest wisdom prepared a procedure. I can never translate that word. For men, a process for men, whereby each morning he can strive to elevate himself from his lowly nighttime state and illuminate his spiritual darkness. All of this is included in the regulation that were ordained both in word and in deed when man wakes up in the morning. So the first act is the washing of one's hands. It is the hands that are defiled and upon which the noxious spirits rest, and it is therefore necessary to purify them and drive away this evil. God ordained that this ruach ra should be driven away through proper washing, as our sages taught us, namely by once pouring water over his hands 3 times alternatively. So I've read different opinions. Some say it corresponds to nefesh, ruach, neshama. We have 5 levels of the souls. There's 3 levels of the soul that leaves our body. Some say it's ruach, neshama, chaya. Some say it's neshama, chaya, yechida, the 3 higher ones. At the end, it doesn't matter much. The idea is that we have those 3 levels of soul that leave our body, and therefore 3 layers of tuma comes in. That's why we have to wash 3 times. Through this, man's entire body is also purified, just as it was all defiled as a result of the noxious spirit that prevails in his hands. So when you wash your hands 3 times, you can actually, it's like a mikveh for the entire body. I know that there's also a special Kavanah chart. I don't have it. I have it here. Basically, someone who needs to, on Friday, who wants to go to the mikveh, but there's no mikveh, he can do a whole washing on the hands, and that's considered as if he's took an entire mikveh. So the hands are really very significant in relation to the whole body. And in a way, the hands are the microcosm of the entire body. Not only that, the idea of water, we know that water cleans in the physical world. We use water to kosher something. We use water to wash something. We use water to convert someone. Hashem used water in the Mabul to renew stuff. So water has that quality of washing. And we know water comes from heaven. Shamaim, it means shamaim, the water that is there. There is water. So the water was split and the heavens were split, and part stayed like heaven-like, and one became more physical, which is the water, which is the whole story. What the water has salt in it because it complained, why one part is up, one part is down. They say, don't worry, I'm going to give you salt so that your salt you're going to be used to bring for the korbanot. So the water was not too sad, so to speak. So the idea is that water has that purification power, physical and spiritual, because technically it comes from heaven. So we're cleaning ourselves with a heavenly water, so to speak. We just need to have the right intention and do it properly. Man is a microcosm, and therefore this concept also includes a rectification of creation as a whole. So not only that, he's saying, but beside me purification myself, just so through the ritual of washing one's hand, the world is also purified of its nighttime corruption and brought out of its spiritual darkness, which is fascinating. When I wash my hands in the morning, I have to understand that I'm washing the whole evil of the world, the whole spiritual darkness that came through the night in the world, which is fascinating. Again, we have to understand, Bishvili Nivre Olam, the whole world is created for me. So for every individual, there's two things in the world: there's me and God, nothing else. Everything else is hologram sent by God for me to be able to have a story in order to be able to come close to God. Challenges and free choice, and everybody has to think the same. It just happened that we're all in the same time together in our world. It's like multiverses, string theory. Each one has his own black hole and live in that special world with God. Everybody is in its own matrix, so to speak. So the whole idea is that we are able to affect the entire world, and that I have to understand that the way I deal with myself, with my body and my soul, the way I behave, that's how my world is going to be in Olam Haba. That's really the challenge. We think we're here and only affecting my friends, my family, my neshama, a few people. No, you don't understand. You are creating your future world, your spiritual world. You're creating your Olam Haba. There's only you. And therefore, I have to trust that the world I see everything is depending on my action, on my thoughts, on my emotions. Whatever world you create here with what you were given is whatever you're going to get in Olam Haba. And therefore, we have to already start thinking that way. This is my world. How do I want to be in my world? How do I want to behave in my world? You want a world of love? Then love everyone. Spread the love. And then in Olam Haba, you enter into that world of love that you have created, right? So it's an incredible lesson we learn here. Related to this is the cleaning of one's body by attending the lavatory. So next step is not only wash my hands, but when I wash my body, I'm Olam Katan. So when I wash my body, I'm washing the whole world too. I have to look at myself. And he said that about the Shema. There's 240 organs of my body, and these connect to 248 parts of the world. So when I wash my body, I have to imagine that I'm washing the whole world. I have to look at myself as I am a world. Right? We are the world. This famous song, right? we are the world. We are the world. I am the world. Each one has to say, Bishvili Nivra Olam, I am the world. So the way you take care of your body, that's the way we take care of the world. As if to say that if today I start feeling love about everyone, my heart is active, then all the hearts of every being in the world is become more loving. If I'm start crying because I'm sad or I'm upset, let's say I get angry, upset at something, then every being is pushed to be more angry at that moment. Even the animals become angry, right? It's almost like, right, it's me that can get me that the world reacts. And it's like it says about the animals, when the animals smell fear, if you're in front of an animal that can be dangerous, you can show that you have fear, because if you have fear, he smells it. So meaning that fear is transferred. He can smell it, so it's there, it's real, it's tangible. When you create fear, everything around you becomes going to fear. We create our own reality. We have to really look at it that way. The more the reality that is in your mind, your imagination, your emotions, the more you create a vibe, a mood, the more is like karma almost. The more the world becomes that way. Your world becomes that way. So we have to be very cognizant of that. If I want to then that's why people who are negative, they encounter constantly negative people and negative things around them. People are positive usually, and they spread positivity, and people react positively around them. So it's a very important thing to understand, because from the morning I have to understand what I'm going to invest in there. That's what I'm going to get. Obviously, sometimes there are things to challenge us and to fight us, and the different forces, but I have to understand that everything is in the hands of Hashem, meaning that everything is designed in order for me to deal with the world I create and be challenged to grow in that world. Hashem designed it that way. All right. Through all these things, man is purified and prepared to approach his creator. Okay. So this is then followed by 2 observances. Again, all this is said that, so all those steps are necessary to bring about something, to be free, like we said, and to be connected to God, to come close to God the right way. This is then followed by 2 observances, 2 commandments, each of which is included among the 613 commandments of the Torah. These 2 observances are the Tzitzit and the Tefillin, which together with prayer complete the daily service. We will first explain their own particular significance and then go into the role they play in the rectification of the daily order. So although it applies only to men, a woman technically, if she doesn't do it to be like a man, but because she wants to connect to the commandments of those, the power and the meaning of those commandments, she can technically do it, but the custom is not to. And the reason that it's mostly connected to the man is because the man needs this badly in order to rectify himself. A woman doesn't need those because she has the power of the tzitzit and the power of the tefillin integrated already in her psyche, in her soul. Those commandments are already rectifying her. Those 2 parts, those 613 parts of the body correspond to 613 commandments, and those 2 commandments are already rectifying in her. And therefore, she technically doesn't need to do it. However, if she wants to be more in touch with that part of herself, technically she could do it. The significance of tzitzit stems from the fact that God desired that Israel be sanctified through everything associated with them. So again, I want to reiterate that even as a woman, you can learn about that and how it exists in you, even though you don't do it. It's to be aware of the concept and one's strength. He therefore gave them commandments relating to all times and circumstances so that everything should serve to rectify them. Like I say, a woman is already rectified in that area, therefore, those 2 areas, therefore she doesn't need. Among the things associated with man is the clothing that he wears. In order that this also be rectified with holiness, God commanded that tzitzit be placed on the corners of all 4-sided garments, thus consecrating them with a degree of holiness. So the tzitzit is a rectification for our garments. And garments is physical garments, but also garments of light that we had in Gan Eden. It's a reference to that too, but that's more of Kabbalah. Here we'll try to stay on the simple, it's all Kabbalah, diluted Kabbalah. But the tzitzit, and one of the reasons why the Hasidim put it on the outside is because that's a beautiful holy garment and represents the light of the soul. It's like Superman who has his uniform under. So we have our uniform under, our neshama that is shining. That's why the minhag is to cover them, for especially by Sfardim. Hasidim, they want to put it on top of other garments, but by they still cover it with the bigger jacket. By Sfardim Dafka, they cover it completely. Even the strings they don't show it because it represents my inner power, my soul power. I don't want it to be exposed. It's nude, so to speak. and a woman is already like that. She has that that power, that light in her, and that's why the Sfardim hide it. There's also a deeper concept included in this commandment. Man must wear God's insignia, very much as a vassal wears the insignia of his master. So I'm a soldier of the IDF. I'm gonna have the IDF logo. So same thing. My tzitzit is my logo, that I belong to God, that I'm one of God's soldiers. When I put my tzitzit, I'm part of God's army. We know Israel is God's army. So the reminder is, I'm here as a mission sent by God to be a light into the nation. And interesting, tzitzit has to do with light, as we know. This is a part of accepting God's yoke and subjugating oneself to Him. Each time I put my tzitzit in the morning, I'm saying, that's why it's going to 613 commandments, I'm ready to put my uniform, so to speak, and go out there and do my mission. I accept it upon myself. It's a bit the Kabbalah when you say every morning, Hashem, I'm saying that I have a responsibility that is greater than a non-Jew, and my mission needs to, I have to make sure that I fulfill my mission as a Jew. Man was given the task of rectifying all creation, as discussed in the first section. In maintaining all things in the state desired by God, man is serving God and doing his work. This is accomplished through man's actions based on the Torah and commandments that he was given. All of this, however, is based on the fact that man is God's servant and was therefore given the task of rectifying all creation. It is for this reason alone that his deeds can have such an effect, and he can thus actually accomplish this. So that's our mission. The fact that man has this responsibility is called God's yoke, Ol Malchut Shamayim. And it is very much like the yoke that a master places on his slave. Man's ability to rectify creation is strengthened by certain aspect of this yoke, as determined by God. Among these aspects is the distinction and insignia which we wear as the tzitzit. So it's his mark. It reinforces. It gives us a special spiritual strength that's connected to the mitzvah, that gives him more strength to do his mission in the world and be a light into the nation and rectify the whole world. Okay, so that's okay. And then, besides the fact that one must constantly wear tzitzis, our sages also associated it with the morning service in particular. They thus ordain that a person must wear a talit containing tzitzis during the morning prayers. There is another aspect of the acceptance of God's yoke, and it has the power to help one partake of God's work, which is the rectification of the universe, as discussed above. Since the morning service is meant to accomplish this, its concept is thus enhanced by the commandment of tzitzis. So it's powerful because it has the power to help one partake of God's work. So that means that by doing this, I become automatically part of God's army, and I'm empowered, like as if given special lights or spiritual powers, that when I'm going to do something, I'm going to be impacting the world all the more, so much more. It's like someone who has the a pass, the card to go in secret services, or that he has access to certain things, certain powers, certain weapons that someone who doesn't have that can access. Okay. Okay, let's try to just finish the talit and tefillin, tzitzit and tefillin, because it kind of goes together. The idea of tefillin is much loftier than that of tzitzit. So tzitzit is pretty powerful, but this tefillin is of a higher degree of holiness. Through tefillin, God gave Jews the power to draw down upon themselves an extension of God's holiness itself and crown themselves with it, causing one's whole being, body and soul to come under a great light, bringing tremendous rectification. And do you understand what we just said? And we're saying the woman already has that in her. Okay, when the woman says every morning, she has to understand that she has something in her, right, that is already higher than the man, especially in this. As we know, part of what is going to kind of explain later, but the idea that a woman is much more, has her brain and heart much more connected, which is the whole message of the tefillin, to be in touch completely with one's heart and doing things with a full heart. Most women, as we know, are much more connected to their entire self when they do something. That's why they're much more emotional or like insensitive. That's why they understand children better usually. So God gave Jews the power to draw down upon themselves an extension of God's holiness and crown themselves. So it brings tremendous rectification. The Torah just says, all the nations of the earth shall see that God's name is called upon you, referring to the result when Israel fulfills the commandment of tefillin in all its details. So somehow when we put on tefillin, it gives us a special aura, in a way the same aura that the woman has when she's married, and she has to cover her hair. That's why I really look at the woman covering her hair just like some men putting on tefillin, and that's her crown and in her insignia. So men pour tefillin, the woman puts her shade or whatever, her head covering. They both have the crown. Okay. There are two main parts of the human body where the soul strongly manifests itself. These are the heart and the brain. God therefore commanded that we first transmit this light to the brain through the tefillin worn on the head. The brain and the soul manifest in it, and the soul manifests in it, the neshama manifests in it, are thus rectified. This rectification is then extended to the heart through the tefillin that are worn on the arm in proximity to the heart. The entire man, his every aspect, it is thus included in this transmission of holiness and is engulfed and greatly sanctified by it. The various concepts and details associated with this commandment are all necessary to complete all the elements of this rectification as they relate to the various aspects of man himself. By the way, I wanted to also add that, it says a man wear a talit, well, according to Sfarim, with 13, but according to Ashkenazim, when they are getting married, because they say when a man gets married, he starts having an aura, meaning the man and woman start having an aura. So a man has a talit because he has to cover his hair when he davens and he puts on tefillin. He achieved the same lemadriga that a woman when she's married without putting on tefillin, just because she's married and that's it. She received an aura, and therefore a man needs to cover also his hair during prayer, his head, just like a woman covers her head when she's married. So you see a parallel there. Of the light that is in us and what you use for the talit, man's covering the hair. So we are commanded to don this crown, the crown of tefillin. And by the way, we have the woman is ateret bala, right? That the woman is the crown of her husband So here you go already, it's like when a man put a crown on his head, it's as if he put his wife on his head, so to speak, meaning that the wife is what enables him to have a crown. When he puts his feeling, it's like he's connected to her, to the feminine power, and is technically on the level now of the woman, and is supposed to behave in a way that is very similar to those righteous women who have her heart and mind connected. We're going to don this crown, the crown of Tefillin, every day of the year, except for on holidays, which in themselves serve as an insignia for Israel, and on their own crown, the Jew with, sorry. Oh, sorry. So yeah, so it's in during the holidays, it serves as an insignia. So you guys during the weekday, you need the tefillin to have that light that you're part of God's army on you. But during the holidays, and Shabbat, it happens by itself. You receive that light, which is saying you're a Jew and we are shining. And it crowns the Jew with an aura. So that aura, we can have the same aura, meaning we can live on a level of Shabbat and holidays during the week when we have our tefillin. That's what it's saying. Obviously, technically, we should be able to achieve our level of tefillin, of that aura, that light shining as human being, even without the tefillin, like a woman, but we are not yet on that madriga, and there's a need to rectify certain things in the world. So we do this. Very few people can do that. That's the whole famous thing with the controversial statement from the Rebbe, Ishbitzer Rebbe, who says that technically, if you're a tzaddik, you don't need to do any mitzvot, because all the mitzvot helps you do to become someone holy. If you're someone holy and close to God, then what's the point of doing the mitzvot? You're holy and close to God. However, because almost no tzaddik is really like that, and because the world needs to learn from the behavior of the tzaddikim, they still all have to do it. So on days which are not holy days, it is impossible to attend such aura without wearing tefillin, and the aura on non-holy days, even with tefillin on, is much smaller than that attained on holy days. So even with the tefillin during the week, you are not shining as much as when you shine on holidays and Shabbat. Your aura, the aura of Shabbat, I think, is even stronger than the holidays because you have the Neshama Yesera and everything. So, but understanding that when we put on tefillin and talit, it's a type of tefillin specifically, it's a type of aura. You receive a light there. You're shining being. And that's why you can go and read the Siddur and ascend worlds as you're praying, because you're shining with that light, and you're like an angel. You can ascend spiritually. You're rectified, so to speak, to some level. These matters are all determined. They determine their conditions, fixed and measured by the highest wisdom, which decides what is most appropriate. After a Jew has put on tzitzit and tefillin, which serves as insignias, okay. After a Jew has put on tzitzit and tefillin, which are as insignias, he is ready for the morning prayer service instituted for the sake of all the necessary rectifications. Indeed, the general purpose of the prayer service is these rectifications, which affect all of creation. All universes are to be raised to a state in which they are capable of receiving the highest sustenance, which is then transmitted to them by God according to their needs. And we're going to stop here for today. And we'll continue there, which starts the actual prayer. Until here was all the preparation so that we're ready and fit before prayer. We come like a Kohen Gadol ready to do the service, or Kohen ready to do the service. And by the way, that whole preparation part is what's happening in the temple, in the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore we relieve the same thing. We do the connection. All right, to be continued next time, B'ezrat Hashem. Very exciting to continue on the order of the day and how much power we have to influence the world and to create our own beautiful world, a beautiful story. Make your own story, be your script, rewrite the script. What type of story you want to tell your children? What type of world do you want to show? Which movie you want to produce that inspires everyone? That's what we have to do. The way we act every day, what we prepare, the way we use the world is our ability to prepare such an incredible movie. So may we all be able to make the best possible movie we can all make about our lives, so that in Olam Haba we'll all be able to enjoy the popcorn in front of your movie. Baruch Adonai Olam, Amen, Amen.